Thank you and very good morning to you all. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Sharnakar, founder of Just Transition Research Center, IIT Kanpur, and Dr. Saakshi Chauhan, scientist, Just Transition Research Center, IIT Kanpur, for conceptualizing this report, very timely report. And this report has talked about India's energy transition and inquiry into the steel industry and its path to sustainability. Today we have with us a guest of honor, our guest speaker, Sri Sushim Banerjee, who is also the CEO of IISSSC, and he's the industry leader for last 30 years. Mr. Banerjee has done his postgraduate in economics. He was a gold medalist from Presidency College, Calcutta University. He obtained a postgraduate diploma in business management from All India Management Association, New Delhi. Has also undergone training for industrial research at Fordham University, New York, in 1988. As Executive Director, Commercial Steel Authority India Limited, New Delhi, Sri Banerjee was associated working out strategies and policies of marketing organization of the company. He has also the Chief Risk Officer of SAIL and instituted the enterprise risk management in plants and other units in SAIL. Worked as regional manager, Long Products, Northern Region, New Delhi, and was involved in marketing of long products and formulating of marketing strategies in Northern Region, comprising of 6 states, and also worked in demand forecasting, state-wise analysis, international price comparison, and industrial growth with special reference to steel industry as Deputy General Manager in Steel Authority of India Limited. Sri Banerjee is a member of National Committee on Steel of both Confederation of Indian Industry and Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Worked as Director General Institute of Steel Development and Growth, INSDAG at Kolkata, an institute set up by Ministry of Steel and all major steel producers like SAIL, Tata, RINL, JSW, Acer Steel, Ishpat Industries to promote steel consumption in the country by making innovative and cost-effective steel-based structural designs. Sri Banerjee, presently working as a CEO of Indian Iron and Steel Sector Skill Council, is an industry-driven non-profit company to impart training, assessment, and certification of the people to meet the skill gap in iron and steel sector in the country and mandated under National Skill Development Corporation. IISSSC is primarily catering to industries like iron and steel, re-rolling, sponge iron units, ferroalloys, steel construction, and welding. The governing committee of the council comprises experts from major iron and steel companies, iron and steel related associations, and institutes. With this, I would like to request Dr. Chauhan to say a few words on the report. Dr. Chauhan, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Purnabha. Good morning, everyone. I am Saakshi, and I will just briefly introduce the report. So, steel, as most of you know, is the backbone of modern civilization. From skyscrapers to automobiles, from household appliances to infrastructure projects, steel is everywhere. And it's not just a raw material, it's a driver of economic growth. It forms the foundation of various industries, influencing their costs, production capabilities, and competitiveness. But the downside of this is its environmental impact. The steel industry is a significant contributor to global carbon emissions, accounting for approximately 2.3 gigatons annually. In India alone, the steel industry is responsible for 24% of total industrial emissions, primarily due to its heavy reliance on coal, which constitutes about 85% of its energy needs. The symbiotic relationship between the steel and coal industries in India presents challenges, including carbon emission and other environmental concerns. There are schemes and regulations that have been introduced to address these issues through energy efficiency and renewable energy mechanisms. However, transitioning to cleaner steel production faces challenges like high costs, job displacement, economic disruption, and technological challenges. Despite these obstacles, achieving sustainable development goals requires an energy transition in the steel industry, and therefore balancing environmental concerns with economic viability is crucial for the industry's future. The International Energy Agency found that the demand for steel is going to triple between 2019 and 2040 because more and more people are moving to the cities and there's a huge demand for building materials. But the method doesn't really think about other possible scenarios or change in policies, and it might not fully take into account new technologies or other important things happening around the world that could affect how much steel we need. So there's another way to forecast steel demand called autoregressive forecasting. It's a bit more technical, but it uses data and can adapt to changes more easily. Plus, it considers external factors, which is important for planning for the long term. Accurate forecasts facilitate efficient resource allocation, guides investment decisions, and supports environmental planning. So, firstly, we found that annual steel production will more than double by 2040, sort of aligning with predictions from the IEA. However, this surge in production implies increased reliance on coal unless significant energy transition policies are implemented. Also, India's heavy dependence on imported coking coal means that the rise in steel production will lead to a proportionate increase in coal imports, potentially impacting the country's balance of payments. Finally, the rise in steel production will also increase the demand for raw materials, impacting global commodity markets and intensifying resource competition. Other than forecasts, this report also comprehensively examines the steel production methods, environmental implications, and the symbiotic relationship with the coal industry. It also discusses the economic and social implications of transitioning to cleaner steel production, including potential job displacement and technological challenges. In conclusion, the steel industry's challenges are significant, but they also offer us an opportunity to make meaningful changes. By adopting sustainable practices, investing in research and development, and fostering collaboration among government, industry, and research institutions, we can create a future where economic prosperity goes hand in hand with protecting the environment. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chauhan. Now I'd like to request our guest of honor, our guest speaker, Sri Sushim Banerjee, to infer into the report and also to highlight the current scenario in the steel industry and how we are seeing its growth in the current future.
Okay. Thank you, Purnabha. And thank you, Dr. Chauhan, Dr. Sarnakar, and all others who are present here. I am indeed very happy to present at the launching of the report on energy transition and sustainability of Indian steel industry, prepared by the Just Transition. This is a very beautiful word, Just Transition Research Center, IIT Kanpur. I had an occasion to go through the report, and I was impressed by the very comprehensive coverage of the subject. And as Saakshi has mentioned, it is ultimately, which I also believe, that there cannot be a, under Indian scenario, there cannot be a just, a rapid transition. So we have to find out a just transition method of fossil-free, way of steel production, which all other countries are doing. And our government has also set specific targets for doing that. I'll come to that later on. But since, the whole theme, at least the first part of the report talks of, the growth and the prospects, the capacities, etc. So I'll just try to, touch upon those factors. And I will ultimately arrive at some indicators which will, say that which way the Indian steel industry will be moving. What are those factors that can be captured? As Saakshi has said that they have adopted a model AR model, which is of course the production side and all the other factors. But there are many other factors on a macro perspective, as well as in a micro perspective, which I will also like to, throw upon before you, so that it can be further discussed. First, before we discuss that, I'll go back to the little bit on the growth factor, which has also been covered in the report. In fact, the steel industry is one of the oldest, industry in the global arena by India. If you remember, the steel industry was born a few centuries ago with the development of wood steel. That is, that came up in the southern India, and that was still in practice in some form or other. You must have heard the wrought steel, because wrought steel was the earlier form of, the steel that we are now seeing. So with the setting up of Jamshedpur Iron Works in 1907 and followed by Bengal Iron Works by the Mukherjee, the First World War saw India is one of the countries which are supplying arms and ammunitions to the British Army for fighting the First World War. And after that, when we got independence, as you know, the planning scenario was mainly focused on the heavy industries. So there was a distinct shift in the from the second plan and third plan, when we saw the new capacities coming up in Durgapur, Rourkela, Vilai, Bokaro later on, and then in the 60s and 70s. This was followed by there was a criticism that time by the government that the government is only propagating the public sector steel plants. Why not give opportunity to the private sector, which was quite right. And there were a some of the mini steel plants, they came into being in around about 80s. Some of the galvanized manufacturers who will be rolling the cold rolled sheet into galvanized sheets, and there was a good demand for particularly in the Jammu and Kashmir area for roofing purposes. So all these units, they also came up, but there was a capacity constraint. I'll not go into the details, but what I am saying that the re-rolling sector, which is mainly the finishing product line of Indian steel industry, like TMT bar, structurals, rails, plates, hot roll coil, cold roll coil, galvanized, and pipes. All these came between 80, 85, and 90. However, we were blessed. In fact, I will use this word, that we were blessed with industrial liberalization announced by the government in 1991. So all these capacity constraints, pricing, the control of the government, how to set the price, all these were done away with. And there was another very a factor which was called as the freight equalization policy. That that time all consumers at different parts of the country, they used to get at a equalized freight all the materials. So that policy also was done away with a simple sense that it does not carry any economic logic. So the industry had a slow growth, but robust growth also during the period between 2000 to 2023. And if you see FY 23, India produced about 127 million tons of crude steel and consumed about 120 million tons of finished steel. And in that process, India now has become the second, largest producer as well as the consumer of, steel. And now India is having also the fastest, growing economy, not only in terms of GDP numbers, but also in terms of the steel production and consumption. And in the first 10 months, India has already produced some 117 million. So I have a belief that we will be end up the year with 140 million tons of crude steel, and our finished steel consumption will reach somewhere between 130 to 132 million. So just compare these things with the National Steel Policy 2017, that 300 million ton of the capacity creation, and then production is about 255 and consumption about 235 million tons. So we are, I would not say it is achievable, but at one point of time in the last 2 years, 3 years, when the recessionary trend and industrial stagnation was there, so we were thinking that it will be staggered. But now it looks like that, yes, we will be achieving that, the milestones that have been set by the government. Of course, as you know, I'll always, this is my personal belief, that no enterprise will set up unit or ask for capacity expansion or go in for production unless there is a corresponding market. So the market growth is the basic determinant of production as well as capacity creation. This, I believe, is very much true for a steel sector. As you know, steel basically goes into the 4 major sector like construction, infrastructure, that is about 68%, the engineering sector about 20%, which is heavy industries, consumer durables, etc. Then comes automobile about 9%, and then comes the defense and packaging, which is about 3%. So that sums up in a summary what is the steel industry, where the steel flow is going. And so in order to determine what is determining factor of steel production and consumption, I would say the first determining factor from the macro side is the investment. It is the gross fixed capital formation as a percentage of GDP, which is now hovering between 29 to 30%, way below than what China, which is having already a depleted production, but still their GFCF as a percentage of GDP is around 41%. So investment or the capital formation is the first indicator of steel demand, and which is some studies have said that the steel intensity in capital formation is at least 7 times more than steel in consumer expenditure, whereas the consumption expenditure is also a major indicator in driving the steel demand, particularly the demand for housing, demand for consumer durables, demand for the various items which are and also automobile, particularly the rural demand for tractors and two-wheelers. These are all dependent on the consumption expenditure. Unfortunately, the rate of growth of consumption expenditure has come down recently, and that is a cause of worry into this particular segment, which is fulfilling the steel demand. However, it is very heartening to note that in the interim budget also, the government has kept the capex very high. In fact, all credit, all kudos to the government that they have now realized that the massive infrastructure deficit that India is having, it has to be fulfilled under various occasions, and that is why there is a sustainable increase in the capex. It is now 11.1 lakh crore, which is about 17% more compared to what we will be ending the year last year, about 9.5 lakhs. And therefore, the roadways, the railways, renewable energy, water supply, transport, oil and gas transportation, irrigation, everywhere the government will be spending, and that will give a lot of impetus to the steel demand. So why I am saying this sectoral approach? Because this is another approach of looking at the steel demand and production. I would say that this is a disaggregated approach. While you combine with GDP and other macro factors and forecast steel demand, that is an aggregated approach. For disaggregated approach, we have to identify how steel is going into the different segments and how it is impacting the industrial production, manufacturing sector, which is about 77% of the weightage about the industrial production. So mining, manufacturing, and electricity. These are the broad three categories. However, we also go deeper down the user side, categorization, where industrial production is, grouped under infrastructure, construction sector, capital goods sector, uh, intermediates, and consumer durables. So these are the four another sectoral approach that can be taken. So I think as a dependent variable, we can take the growth of construction, growth of capital goods, growth of consumer durables, to see how the impact on engineering industry, including automobile. So that is the so far as the growth and development of the concern. One point I want to mention here about the capacities. The current capacity, as per official statistics, is about 174 million, and we are slated to go up to 300 million ton. That is a wish list by the government, by NSP 2017, by 2030. So that means from now onwards, say it is about 7 years time. So I find from the various reports, you have also found that the seven large players, whether it is SAIL, Tata Steel, JSW, JSPL, ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel, and RINL, all of them, they have announced, including NMDC's new plant at Nagarnar, which is a new plant of 3 million ton of hot rolled coil, which is coming maybe by June, July. It will be commercially established. So the announcement which they have done, which will combine a capacity creation mostly with brownfield. I am talking of brownfield because brownfield expansion does not lead any land related issues, and more or less the availability of other utility services are available in the major plants. So brownfield expansion will have a much faster track record. So around 98 million tons will be coming out of this brownfield and one or two greenfield sites that have been mentioned. So the balance out of 126, if you take out 98, that means about 28 to 30 million ton is to come from standalone EAF units and induction furnace units. Now, induction furnace, as you know from what China has done, because of the induction furnace, because they are using sponge iron, which is another carbon emitting material. So EAF, of course, they are using scrap, and their way of functioning is also that they are the most least carbon emitting material, whereas BF route, as your report has very adequately covered, that it is the one of the highest, say 2.4 to 2.6. Maybe some industries are going for 2.7, even 2.8 also ton of carbon dioxide, carbon emission, CO2 per ton of crude steel. And whereas in electric arc furnace, it is quite less. So the route which will be taking, because this 98 million ton, I'm sure, although it is based on the blast furnace, because you must be knowing that these 6 players have already got around 30 million tons of capacities in electric arc furnace. Okay, so there is a possibility that they will further scale up the EAF route, but for the fact that scrap is a major item of worry. I'll come to that aspect, because when you are discussing with the steel industry, you must know the facts, and all of you are aware. I will just highlight those facts. And so the growth of Indian steel industry, what route it will take, it all depends on what approach we take about the most discussed item, that is coal, coking coal. Now, coking coal, as you know, is the primary energy source other than, say, natural gas for and coking coal is metallurgical coking coal is used for BF route, whereas for the sponge iron route they use the non-coking coal. So, and if you see the total reserve of coal assets in our country, then coking coal reserve is only about 20, not more than 20%. 80% is non-coking coal. So there is a sort of a lot of activities are there that we get good and although Indian coal, coking coal which are available is contain high ash and other volatile matters are also not very favorable, and that is why that has led to huge imports of coking coal in the current period. And as your report says, I think it has indicated a sort of a warning sentence that the import will be almost it will cross more than 100 million ton in the way forward. Now, what is the alternate? Because this fact is very important to consider the Indian steel industry's approach towards coking coal. I am not talking of the Ministry of Coal, their announcement that Coal India will be producing 1 billion ton of coal by 2030, and so the government wants that at least by 2047 there is a very distinct shift towards lowering the coal production. Now, what are the industries are doing? This is very interesting to know that what each industries are doing. So before that, I will draw your attention to one fact that you must be knowing. The Ministry of Steel has formulated about 13 task force on particularly this on coal decarbonization and what are the aspects related. And I was also a member in one of the committees that is concerned with skill development for coal decarbonization. When we discuss this, and this report is very comprehensive, it has now submitted to the ministry. Now there, what we found that Indian steel industry, if you divide it into two parts, 45% of steel coming from major steel producer, large 6 or 7, and 55% is coming from the medium MSME sector. I call it as SME sector. Now, and there is a distinct difference of realization that coal, we should reduce the consumption of coal. So therefore, we have divided this journey towards net zero emission up to 2070. That is the government of India's sort of target given in COP 27. So in order to achieve that, we have divided this period into 3 parts: the technological intervention and the approach by the industry. And so the first part is we have taken from now, that is from 23-24 to say FY 33 or 34. Why I am taking 33-34? Why I am not talking 30? Because let us not be bound by the target that was fixed say about 10 years back, 20 years back. So it all depends on the market, whether the market will be going there. I'll come to a very interesting aspect which has compelled me to rather stagger this to the second or 2 years, and I have got a lot of arguments with many of my colleagues. I'll come to that if time permits. So the first phase is FY 24 to FY 33, and there we found that there are some specific technologies that are being implemented by the various steel units, and and the first of them is the blast furnace optimization. Now this there is a lot of experimentation is going on, that whether the blast furnace will be able to what extent blast furnace can take hydrogen as a reductant. You must be knowing the Tata Steel recent experiment of 40% injection of hydrogen at a high cost, because the hydrogen cost is very prohibitive, and they have found they have got excellent results so far as the carbon emission is concerned. So there is another research going on to what extent scrap can be used in the BAF. You see, if you see the history of Indian Steel, you will find that they are, the major players are not using more than 8 to 9% of their total, generation. They're generating so much scrap, and they are consuming 8 to 9%. So they are not buying scrap from the market, but they are self-sufficient. But I will say, when the globally it is, the percentage is 31%, BF players, they are using 31% scrap. Why Indian Steel will be consuming less? But when you think of the other way, where the scrap will be available, because already there is a embargo by US, Turkey, Indonesia, where you will get the scrap. Whether your indigenous generation, because this is also another factor government of India is very much highlighting, that vehicle scrappage policy. In our country, unless you make it mandatory, people will not follow. So there are many violations of this 15 years embargo. So if the government can do this, this scrap, in a very recent study where, I was fortunate to be associated with the study of scrap. And so there we have recommended, it is our first recommendation, that the government must come out with, sort of eliminating the use of refrigerator, washing machines, desert cooler, and all other items of personal use beyond, say, the life of, say, 10 years, 12 years, that the government can decide in consultation with the industry. And if you do that, some of my friend was telling that in Canada, he was traveling by car in the morning. He found that, there are few carts are standing with huge amount of, garbage, that is their fridge, refrigerator, washing machines, air conditioner. So they have come to the scrap yard to scrap this. They're getting this with a slip. They're getting his ton, and then they are getting the payment on the spot, and they're going away. So this is the kind of scenario. I think in our country also a scenario will come like this. Then internal generation of scrap will go up very high. So I was talking of the first phase. Then there is a lot of stress on the beneficiation of low-grade iron ore and coal washing facility, and also pelletization. There is a blast furnace operator, they are now seriously thinking of using more pellets, agglomerated iron ore, so that the carbon emission is reduced. Then there is a emphasis on waste heat recovery in various stages. Then there is a use of pulverized coal injection. Then use of natural gas, that is also coming up very high. And the more energy efficient plant. Now, SME sector, I must congratulate them. Many of the SME sector I have seen, they are now upgrading their ladle furnace and the continuous casting facility. As a result, the finished product that is being rolled out, it contains lesser carbon. That has been proved, that if you upgrade the facilities of your reheating furnace as well as ladle furnace, the finished product, rolled product will be much less carbon emitting. So this is the first phase. The second phase starts from FY34 to FY48. And this phase, there will be use of hydrogen as a reducing agent, then recycling of top gas as fuel, and then there will be the more use of scrap, which I have already touched, which is a very debatable point. And the third phase, that will start from FY49 to FY70. We have that hybrid, sort of technique, that green hydrogen through electrolyzer fueled by renewable energy. And that is the ultimate for net zero emission. In between, there will be carbon capture and utilization also. As you know, Tata Steel has already done about 5 ton. JSW the other day, they were saying that they are going ahead with 100 ton per day carbon capture. This is also the main producers are doing. So I divide the Indian steel sector. The first phase is only for the SME sector, whereas the large players, they are more or less transiting from first phase to second phase. And that is the whole scenario. And as and when you will reach 2030, many of the large players, they will be now entering into the third phase. So I think that is all that I want to say. Only thing is that the coal use, I agree with your view. Of course, I must mention that there is a financing issue. This issue is also coming up now, because if you see the global trend, a lot of countries, particularly the advanced countries, they are setting aside good amount of money for doing research and developmental work for decarbonization. It is not happening in our country because the government, I have discussed in some of the fellows who are working in research and development, they say that not much of progress not much in a project form. They want it in a project form. So what the government has done in the interim project, I'll just mention this, because unless I mention this, you will not be able to assess what is the government role is playing. First is the viability gap funding for harnessing offshore wind energy potential for initial capacity of 1 gigawatt. Then coal gasification. This is a major factor. I forgot to tell you. Only the other day, yesterday, I had attended a seminar where I have attended JSPL people, and they were gaga about this coal gasification, what they are entered into, the benefits they are getting. And you will be surprised to know another 5 locations they are now setting up coal syngas facilities. So government has announced coal gasification and liquefaction capacity of 100 ton to be created by 2030 to reduce imports of methanol, ammonia, etc. And phased mandatory blending of compressed biogas, compressed natural gas, CNG for transport, and piped natural gas, that is for the domestic use. Then, of course, e-vehicle system to be further propagated, and the government has announced some PLI scheme already for attending to this factor. So I would now stop here, and I will once again congratulate, because the Saakshi and your team for drawing our attention that it is really ultimately there are 3 factors. I come back once again, because once I start talking, I like to talk. So please, excuse me. The decarbonization technology intervention, please do not look at it as one set of technology diverse from other technologies that have been doing. So the first origin is ESG, the environment, social, and governance. This is a very holistic approach that has been holistic business approach, which is combined the all areas under the supply chain. And it is basically that you are meeting the present needs without compromising the ability of the future generation to cater to their needs. So this ESG already now, the World Steel Association have announced responsible steel, and this award has been backed by Tata Steel very recently, and JSW is also in the fray. Responsible steel means you do not pollute the environment, and you are taking your own measure by water nil water discharge. Many plants are taking this step. Then comes the circular economy concept. You are very well known, the reduce, reuse, remanufacture, and recycle. In every area, what we are suggesting, what circular economy is suggesting, is that it is you take out low volume, high performance steel, like advanced high strength steel, weathering steel, corrosion resistant steel. Then compact strip processing, thin slab casting. It is widely used by, I have recently visited the ArcelorMittal plant. It is, you must be, amazed by seeing, what, the beautifully they are now actually. A time is coming when endless casting will be, imposed on us. I will not say imposed because everybody will be adapted to this. It obviates the hot rolling facility, which is major concern for, emitting carbon. And then there are, I will also say, design technology. Like design technology also, steel structural design, there is a sea change. Like for instance, there is a one technology which is very popular in the other countries in the housing sector is LGSF, low gauge steel frame. And it is just made outside the site in a factory, and then they come it and implant it there. No pollution, no noise, no barrier, social cost of creating a lot of dust and etc. And then the design technology also says that steel is a material which is so flexible, and steel can work wonders in not only LGSF, where cold form structurals are being used. Very thin material is being used, which is very low volume but high performance. So you get the same strength, same durability, etc. And steel works wonder in association with composite, like steel concrete technology, steel concrete composite technology. Many houses are being built. The steel concrete technology, one study, very recent study has been done. It says that between 1990 to 2020, the steel concrete technology as a percentage of the total construction, it has increased from 12% to 58%. And in our country, it is no longer, it is not a very popular. There are various reasons. I will not go into this. So we must adopt these technologies which make steel working with concrete, working with wood, working with timber, working with glass. You will find many of the houses in, particularly in Bombay, it is coming with steel, with glass. The tall building, because of the shortage of space, it is now appearing everywhere. Even in a city like Kanpur also, you must be seeing there is a shortage of space. So developers are asking for tall building, tall structure, 20 and above. So steel concrete is an ideal material for tall building structure. So the government follows it, there will be further avenues of reducing steel consumption. We are already talking of green construction. There is a specific concrete available, which is very much much less carbon emitting concrete. So it is basically the strength of steel which is under tension, and the strength of concrete which is under compression. This is blended and you get a ideal material. So that's all I have to say. Otherwise, I am stopping here